So to my left, Chris Lewis, navigator of Warrior One. You were the first here. You've got the first slip with an early morning arrival. Thanks for keeping me up all night, waiting and waiting and waiting. And to the right, I stand under the master. You probably could add a bunch of other sort of superlatives to that as well. But anyway, the master navigator for the California Illusion. And you guys have both won your divisions to just absurdly different boats from different generations, which is pretty cool in this whole scheme of things. So, so a little bit later, we're going to go and you guys are going to walk us through the big picture of how the race played out. But since you got here first, give me the quick lowdown on your race.
Yeah, our race was not what we expected in some ways, because it was primarily impacted by a front that came through the race course, and unfortunately we were the latest start rather than the earliest start, like Charlie and Chad and Jason Carroll and Argo and Malama. So we were at the end of the caboose, and unfortunately we were also postponed. And then with the postponement, we ended up starting in virtually no wind. It took us several minutes even to get to the start once the race began. And unfortunately, that put us further behind the front. And so our hope was that we would get out in that nice southwesterly and start ripping and have a pretty straightforward course. But we knew it was a possibility that might not happen. And so we had several scenarios. And it was through the scenario planning that really helped us think through the latter stages of the race. But effectively, with our late start, then we were behind the front. And as Stan advised me before the race, you know, that's a tough position to be in, because it can often be really light behind the front and it's hard to poke through. And so that front defined the rest of our race, and unfortunately limited some of our options at important stages of the race, like the Gulf Stream. And so we were totally front impacted, and that was our race.
It's amazing how in a span of a small window, you guys were like bodies to leeward and forward, and you guys were just full on into the fun.
Number 3.
Yeah.
So, how about you guys? I mean, you've got the magic frontal launch pad.
Yeah, we had great weather, and our race, it's different for me. I've mostly have raced in line honors boats and record-setting boats, and it hasn't been since the 70s that I've sailed in small boats in the middle of a fleet, and that was a terrific experience, because you've got all these probes on all sides of you to measure yourself against. And our race was really all about preparation, and that it's helpful that we've owned the boat for 33 years. It's helpful that we sailed it around from San Francisco to here. We had an unimaginably good crew, and perfect sails, perfect bottom, and the boat was perfect for it. And we lucked into a situation where we were the right size boat.
I think I heard somebody from your team basically said, "Well, we just did what Stan told us to do." And so you kind of had but this is the amazing thing. You can map it out, particularly with the tools you have these days, so accurately. But yet, right, to sort of connect the dots, you have to sail the boat perfectly.
Yeah, you have to sail the boat, and there is inconsistent information, and there is information that is decreasingly good, decreasingly dependable with time, and so you have to kind of do the risk adjustment of it. And then in situations where the data is inconsistent, you have to choose which model to trust, if any. So there's a lot of human judgment to it, but the tools are very different than the early Bermuda races I did, where it's all celestial, and we're copying Morse code and plotting weather maps with connected dots using fleet code.
Were you born yet when he was?
He was winning races before I was born, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very different.
Yeah. Did your race play out too as you sort of plotted it to be?
Yeah, it did very much. It turned out as expected. There's some stuff that I set aside as being unpredictable, like the current south of the first set of eddies that are south of the stream. That whole area down there, all the models show stuff, but I have learned to have so little confidence in it that I won't invest a mile to optimize for it. So I'll trust, if I'm confident in a model, I'll trust it for the stream, for the eddies north of the stream, and for a single eddy south of the stream, but nothing south of that. And so that part, it was just the luck of the draw.
Same for you?
Yeah, same for me. I wanted to steal Stan's line that we also had an unimaginably good crew, and honestly, we were pushing the boat really hard and fighting for our lives, honestly, because we just had this barrier that was slowing us down, and we knew the people coming behind us were gonna have more pressure, and so we treated it like a short course race and fought for every mile.
Stay with it.
Yeah.
Stay with it. There was something interesting Stu said at the dock. Stu Benetine, you're one of many legends on the boat, about bringing sort of a last minute call to bring the spinnaker. That was not originally sort of planned, and it actually got me thinking about how sort of people can tunnel vision on their sail selection the day of. Was that a morning of decision, and
no,
that end up being kind of a key?
No, and you're right. Having Stu Benetine on the boat is part of the magic, and we also have Richard Clark as our tactician, and one of the things that I think sets this boat apart is we have really good communication and planning. Like, the three of us sit together all the time in the lead up to the race, and Christian's wonderful enough to provide us a platform where we got here very early, did a lot of sail testing. We don't do anything the day before the race, and so we are just focused on, we don't do any sailing the day before the race, but we're focused on all the race setup. And it was actually Richard that suggested one of the things that we should do, given the uncertainty of the models and all the rest, is think about what if our start was 3 hours later, or 4 hours later, or 5 hours later. And at the time, we didn't even know what our start time was, and we certainly didn't know that we were going to be postponed. And so that really helped set up effectively our three scenarios. So we had Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C, and the spinnaker plan was actually Plan C. But it actually turned out we sailed most of the race, well, say half the race in Plan B, and then Plan C. So we were not caught unawares by the idea that we might have what somebody called on the boat, and I wish I knew who it was to give them a shout out, but we had a East Coast Transpac for a while, with a Gulfstream acceleration, because we were flying. I know that Christian had posted a video that's been rolling above the club bar, and we were just rolling with the kite up and triple head rig and the Gulfstream giving us an extra 3+ knots of push. So yeah, we were ready. We did have a breakage with our A2, but we still had sails around it, so we were fine.
Quick question, what was your top speed?
When I was younger, I used to pay a lot of attention to that, and like now.
Roughly.
I know with the Gulfstream assisting it, our speed over ground was probably, it was consistently, I saw like some 22s, but maybe a 24 here and there.
Interesting. And yours?
I'm
baiting them. Right? Yeah.
Our peak speed was 22.
Boom.
There you go.
But, Cal 40 surfing is like surfing a brick off a curb.
Yeah.
It goes really fast for a little thing of time. But that was, Carl Buchan driving, and Sally was on watch with Carl, and they got 3 waves in a row, and each wave was faster. And they added on because the boat wasn't slowing down all the way between waves. So the third wave, they were surfing at 22.
That was the first. It's amazing, the differences in the boats and what you get out of it.
Yeah, the hard part for us was we never had those waves lining up. It was very, very bumpy for us and very difficult driving. But again, we're blessed with really wonderful drivers. Our drivers are primarily Richard Clark, Stu Benetine, Chris Welch, Hartwell Jordan, and Christian himself is a very good driver, our owner. And so they're the primary drivers. And it was like a bucking bronco. I mean, the boat was flying all around. There was water on the deck, and it was pretty hairy.
And as far as I understand, Stan, you were also in charge of cooking. And a master chef this week. How much cooking did you do?
So our boat captain, Colin Leon, who I can't imagine a better boat captain. I mean, our boat was, and again, to tie into what Stan said, like we show up to every race so well prepared, and a lot of folks say it's a foregone conclusion when we're really ready for a race. And I guess this race was weird because Stan and I talked about this race 4 years ago, and then there was the cancellation. So we've been itching to do this race for a long time. So Colin had the boat immaculate, and our food, I actually had 2 of the best meals that I've ever had offshore. One was the beef stroganoff, freeze-dried, of course. And what was the other one? It was a risotto, I think, was the other one. But Colin is very particular about the boat, so he's the one that cooks, and we eat in shifts, and off it goes. So no, I didn't do any. I think he's afraid I'll set a fire to the boat and totally screw up our race, because, you know, especially with a tablet, sometimes, you know, you can be blinded, and then it becomes very hard to see, because unlike Stan, who's down below sometimes doing his navigation, the whole time I'm sitting on the rail with a stylus and a cloth to try and dry my screen constantly.
And you were just sliding frozen trays into the oven? And
Yeah, Sally did a lot of the provisioning. We have a water maker, but we can't be bothered to use it during a race like this. And so we, given that we're going to carry water, there's no advantage to freeze-dried. So we just brought fresh food. And Sally did the provisioning, and it was great. So it's basically my job was, you know, heating up the lasagnas and the beef stews and whatnot and passing it on. And then to answer your first question, I generally don't cook other than on deliveries when I'm the skipper and the only one who's not seasick, and so I do. But I do often, you know, make coffee and whatnot for the guys above on deck and bring it up with me.
the dual roles of the modern navigators.
Say again?
So the dual roles of the modern navigator. It's
Well, and we had a crew of 5, so there's two on each watch. And so I was always on standby. So I was on deck to spell people driving, and I was on deck for every reef and unreef, and then I navigated, and then took on the other jobs of fixing stuff when it broke and cooking. So it worked out pretty well.
So it's back to the race. The Gulf Streams and these eddies. You sort of, I'm getting you guys both hooked into that same sort of magic carpet.
It's very different. I mean, as you know, I often sail on line honors boats, but it's very different when you're sailing on a slow boat, because, you know, a Cal 40, yeah, we go 22 and we can average 8, but you're often averaging something like 7.
Right.
And if the Gulf Stream is going 4, it's a huge deal. So you have to get the Gulf Stream exactly right. Whereas when I navigate Gitana 17 and you're going 40, mostly you look for the adverse current, because in light air, downwind, the adverse current gives you more apparent wind and you can go faster, and in heavier weather or medium air, upwind, the sea state in the favorable current isn't worth it. So you're actually wishing there was no current at all, or picking the adverse current. But in a Cal 40, no matter how rough it is, you take advantage of the current and you send it. And so, you know, so it's a very different decision making, and how important the current is and how you play it. Whether you either ignore it or avoid it, or whether you absolutely have to get it right, because it's more than half your boat speed.
And it's this may be getting. It's easy. I've heard from some of the other teams. You know, it just the cascading chain effect. Something happens before you get there, and how it sort of sets you differently to what you had hoped to be. Really can kind of throw the whole race off.
Yeah, it's, you know, the leaving the start, we sagged more. I think we were the leewardmost boat. In fact, people were yelling at us for missing Mark 2A because they confused Mark 2 and 2A.
Right.
But we were the leewardmost boat off of the start, and that was in order to get to the stream easily where we wanted to enter it, because we knew we were going to get lifted, and we didn't want to have to fight low to enter the top of the meander. And so, yeah, our course off the start, being way left, was intended to make it easy for us to enter the stream where we wanted to without having to jibe or torture the boat low to get to that entry point. And then we got within about 3 miles of my entry point goal.
Pretty sharp. How about you on your entry point?
Yeah, in some ways I'm so jealous of the ability to be that precise, because, like I said, we were playing jungle ball and fighting for our lives, and you know, our pre-race, you know, like Stan said, we're a fast boat, like very fast, given all the work that we've put into going fast. Like our speed team is unbelievable. And so a lot of our routes in the pre-race were insensitive to current, but fortunately I'd still done my homework, because then when the course opened up and you had freedom, in some ways the routers took advantage of that. But you know, the unfortunate thing is that cold front essentially put the Gulf Stream for us into the wood chipper, and it was frustrating because we knew what we wanted to do, but we just couldn't get to the meander, right? Because we started bumping into it, the boat's rocking all over the place, and we have light wind, and we were like, we got to jibe out of here just to get more breeze and more pressure. And so we had to jibe away from like the best part of the water, which is frustrating in and of itself, but also knowing all the boats behind us, the front's going to be further, and it's going to open up the magic carpet ride that we didn't get. So we were concerned at that point that might be our race. And fair enough, the guys behind us did an excellent job of taking advantage of it and really putting it to us, which gets back to your point that Stu referenced of us being all hands on deck for the final almost a day, because we were really, really behind the 8 ball and had to make it work. And when we talk about the tracker, I'll show how that played out. But yeah, I mean, the Gulf Stream was an interesting aspect of it, but one that we couldn't really take advantage of as effectively as we had wanted to in our strategy.
Yeah, I will say, I imagine, you know, his arrival in the early morning, he was zombie-like. Is that fair to say? Yeah. How about your arrival? Pretty refreshed, would you say?
No, we were pretty tired. I mean, we were pushing as hard as we could over the course of the race, so we could hardly see straight that first day. And when you get in early in the morning, you know, we finished at 5:20.
Yeah.
The first day is pretty blurry.
Yeah. It's kind of a cool haze, though, isn't it? It's just kind of
Yeah.
cool. All right, well, we'll split here. We're gonna go inside, bring up I know we could probably go deep dive in the expedition look at it, but we'll go simplify the overall tracks on the Yellowfin tracker, and it'd be great to sort of see how you guys ended up.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's walk us through this.
Maybe Stan, you start because you started first.
Why don't you show the whole track
Okay.
so I can talk about the whole track.
Zoom it out. All right.
Okay, I can.
One
is
more
it
out.
possible? Yeah, just there.
There we
Perfect.
go.
Okay, so we started in good breeze with a number 3, and then changed to a jib top, a double head rig. And the dominant decision of the first part of our leg was where to enter the stream. And we knew that it would be faster if we cracked off. And we knew that eventually we were going to have to fight to get low to enter at the stream entry point we wanted to, which was about here. And so we cracked off. I think we were the leewardmost boat for a while. And then as we got lifted up, you know, set the kite and then entered the stream about where we wanted to, we jibed twice in the stream to stay centered up in the eddy. And then, so we started out east, and then we went, you know, west to the stream entry point. Then the stream, you know, took us well east again. And then the final shift was, we knew the wind was going to shift to the north and northeast towards the finish. So then we worked our way west again to be inside that final shift, and then came in on port to the finish. So overall, you could say we went east, west over the course of the race.
All right, how about you, Lou?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking how radically different that is, because we were the very last start, and as I mentioned earlier, the dominant feature of this race was the front, which was kind of like that through the race course, and then eventually pulled away. And so we were the last start, which meant that by definition, we were starting behind the front rather than before the front, which we had hoped to do. And then on top of it, we got postponed. So a big cell came through. There was coastal warnings of severe thunder showers and lightning, which we saw. And then we had our start, but effectively we got started in 4 or 5 knots of breeze. And it actually took us a couple minutes even to cross the start. And when we were playing with the tracker a little bit earlier, I saw our boat speed around 2 or 3 knots, which is not very much for a Pac 52. And so, the beginning of our race was defined by, Richard Clark in particular doing his thing, just finding lanes of pressure. And I was calling out, because you got to imagine with a race as popular as the Newport Bermuda, there's a bazillion boats on AIS. And you could see the packs, like some pack doing well and some pack parked, with all points of the compass direction on the boats, just sitting there going nowhere. And so we were just threading our way through a minefield, and Richard was playing jungle ball. And I think we did a fairly good job. I mean, a really good job, frankly, getting the heck out of Dodge, because we kind of saw on some of the models, there was a line of pressure that we needed to get to about 12 miles offshore. And that would give us a chance to start really breathing. And we got there, and that's where Stu Bannatyne's focus really pops into play, where he immediately wanted me mapping all of the different boats around us. And so we're constantly comparing our COG and our SOG against the guys that we can see on AIS, and I'm doing it through the strip chart. So at that point, we're fighting for every 0.2 of boat speed to just keep us ripping. And Stan mentioned the impeccable crew, and this is where our speed team really shines. And we have Mal Parker and Thomas Allen as our trimmers, and Hartwell Jordan on the main, and they just do an incredible job keeping the boat moving through tough conditions. And then our bow team, Dylan Vogel, anytime we wanted a different sail setup, whether it was triple-headed or not triple-headed, and stuff going in and out on furlers and doing the rock back to do peels, that just happened instantly. And so we specially built a tweener for this race that would be pretty effective, and we used it a lot. So we were bouncing between the tweener, the masthead 0, and the J2, of course with our stay sails whenever we could get them in there. And this section of the course was all about speed for us, and we were just keeping the boat rumbling. And this is where we realized, we'll never catch up to the front. We're always playing in this unfortunate situation of being behind the front and poking into light wind. So we're feeling our way, trying to maximize our VMC towards Bermuda. And then, fortunately around here, that's when the breeze went right enough that we got into kites. So at this point, we're into our kites, and we're just screaming along, and it was just beautiful conditions. And like I said, it really felt like an East Coast Transpac at that point. And we had an unfortunate incident that our A2 broke, and it was windy enough and bumpy enough that we were able to make our A4 work. And when that kite broke, again, the crew work, that's where it steps in. And I'm going to go back and look at our log file, but it just happens so quickly that you get the old stuff out of the water and into the boat, and the new one goes up, and you're back on your way. So in here, that's when we stepped into the really nice current. But this was the heartbreaking point of our race, where we knew there was better current kind of out where Stan went, and to get the meander. But the unfortunate thing is the front was right through here. We could see that from the satellite information, we were about 45 miles away from it at that point. And so we just hit a wall, and we couldn't get through that wall. And the boat started misbehaving and rocking like a hobby horse. And so this decision here was to just jibe away from pressure and to try and make it work. And again, for me, it was just so incredibly frustrating knowing that the boats behind us we're gonna make it work and have a beautiful race and have wonderful Gulfstream assisted speed over ground. And so we just jetted on down here, again, focusing on boat speed. We had a little step over here just to get out of the worst of an eddy that was on our nose. And then, this was the make or break point of the course. And I think right around here is where, Stu called for the all hands on deck, and we're just going to push through to the finish, which is really quite a long ways. But, at this point, because we had to step down here earlier, the boats up here had leverage on us. And it was interesting because we felt vulnerable at this point, but there were still boats down over here to the right of us. And so, we ran down the pack that was here, which was, we ran them down kind of here-ish, and then Wizard was out in front of us, and that was really the rabbit out in front of us that we were trying to catch. And so here, we did a great job of the boats in our water, but here we're worried about boats that are 50, 60 miles behind us. And so fortunately, we knew we had what we hoped would have is a righty coming. And so we stepped out here and got the leverage on these guys. And fortunately, the righty came, and then we looked like geniuses on that final ley line. So that final ley line was 115 miles long, which can create ulcers for a lot of people trying to call a ley line from that far away. But Stan and I are Transpac people, and sometimes you have to call 1,000-mile ley lines. So this one wasn't as bad. And so you see the beautiful bend of us getting headed in, and I think we jibed in about 3:30 at this point, and we finished in around a 0.00 wind or 0.10. And fortunately, the rest of the competition came down on our line. So we knew we had them. And at this point, we were actually leading the whole race, which, we never expected to be line honors. Like that wasn't even in our thought process. And so we were really worried about corrected to the boats up here, Hooligan in particular. And so fortunately, the righty came in, and we just started stealing bearing on them. And towards the very end there, we did a couple of jibes just to finish the race. But that was our race.
I owned the boat for 33 years. When I bought it, I was 33. And at that point, could sail it very hard. So I did, a single-handed race. We did a number of double-handed races, five Hawaii races overall, and, just dozens and dozens of Farallons races and inshore races. But as we've gotten older, it's been hard to sail the boat as hard. So one thing we thought would be fun to do is I wanted to do one more race where we could sail the boat really well. Tried to talk Sally into it, and Sally said, who do we get to crew for us? And I said, well, let's imagine the best crew in the world. They have to be amateurs, but imagine the best crew you could possibly have. And so Sally said, well, it'd be Carl Buchan, Star World champion, and the Olympic gold medalist, Don Jesberg, that owns the Cal 40, and Jonathan Livingston, who's a legendary offshore sailor from the Bay. So I said, okay. So I sent an email to the three of them, and within 10 minutes, I got an email back saying, we're in. And it really did pencil out that way. It was just a total honor to sail with those guys. And it was an amateur crew, but these guys are at least as good as any of the pros I've sailed with. And Carl Buchan, I think he's an alien, meaning he sails better than any human possibly can. And the level of concentration he has is extraordinary. So it was a real treat to have a chance to have our last race on the boat be a race where we had, we were perfectly prepared. We'd sailed around from San Francisco to do the race. So we had, 10,000 miles. The boat bottom was perfect, the sails were perfect, and we had an unimaginably talented crew. And it was a real treat to be able to have that be our last experience on the boat as we sell it to my nephew.
All right, my turn. I want to say a few too. If he does, I get two. So on our side, Chris Sheehan is just one of the most fantastic owners to sail for. He made a speech after we finished, and it was so touching that this is one of his dreams. And he was so grateful and appreciative for all the hard work that each one of our teammates put in to help him achieve his dreams. And he'd won the St. David's Lighthouse trophy before in 2016. And for him to win the Gibbs Hill Lighthouse trophy now, I don't think anyone's ever done that in the history of the race. So, his name is going to go in the history books. And, we're just tremendously proud of him, and really pleased to be part of the crew that helped him fulfill his dreams. And then, talking about our crew, we actually this week had 2 babies born. One, Mo Gutenkunst, who had sailed with us in previous races and is a core member of Warrior One, had a baby girl. And Chris Welch, the guy that I mentioned is one of our key drivers and just all around great sailor that Stan's known for a long time, since the Morning Light days. He's having a baby today. So he hightailed it out of here, and he's having a baby. But I guess the last 2 things that I wanted to say is, for me, it's been one of the most tremendous privileges of my life to sail with the afterguard that we have of Stu Bannatyne and Richard Clark. I mean, Stu is, over the last 2.5 years we've sailed together, has taught me more, I would say as much about navigation as Stan has taught me over the years, because Stan has always been very generous with his time. And Richard is such a phenomenal sailor, and it's just this wonderful collaboration that we have in the back of the boat, where there's just information flowing all the time, and such a healthy dynamic, because we found that the 3 minds are better than one, and we can bounce ideas off each other, and at different parts people have different ideas that help win the day. And so that culture of collaboration is really important. And I mentioned our trim team and our speed team and the bow team. I'm struggling to make sure I don't forget anybody, but we had Scott Ewing, who's a really talented guy who leads our grinding. And you look at some of the videos we're working the boat all the time. I mean, we don't sit there, with the sheets and the tailors. We work our asses off, and that's part of why we do well. And so, that's Warrior One. And the last thing I wanted to say is just a big thank you to Stan. Over the years, he's you did a wonderful introduction to Stan, but to me, he's a sailing god. He's been my North Star. And in navigation, I've achieved a certain amount of success, but Stan is always there in the distance and something to aspire to. And it just keep trying to improve and get better to walk in a very, very distant shadow of Stan. And I'm just so grateful for the time that he spent with me over the years, and to win a race like this, and to have Stan win the one division and me win the other, it's pretty spectacular. As 2 navigators, both from St. Francis Yacht Club, and in fact, Stan was my sponsor to St. Francis along with Roy Disney. So I know I've seen on Facebook that there's some happy club members back in San Francisco. But thanks to you for the opportunity, Dave, for doing this. But this has been a fun chat.
Cool.
And we've all walked in shadows. I mean, I never would have made it in navigation without Ben Mitchell Sr. and Peter Bowker and Mike Quilter, who, every time I needed a hand, they would drop everything. And so I've been trying to pass that on to any navigators I can that are coming along. And it's been delightful working with Lou.